Well, welcome to the Bachelor of Science at UNSW Canberra talk. I am Professor John David Dewsbury and I'm Head of School of Science here at UNSW Canberra. I'm actually a human geographer whose background is actually in philosophy, but I've worked with science and human sciences in my career. So what I'm going to do today is go through the kind of courses and the ethos, if you like, of science at the School of Science here at UNSW Canberra. First off, UNSW Canberra acknowledges the Ngunnawal people as the traditional custodians of the lands on which the campus is located. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in the lands on which those that are watching this on live stream are residing right now. For tens of thousands of years, Aboriginal and Torres Island Strait people managed the land sustainably using practices adapted to the unique climate, geography and ecology. We honour their unique relationships with the land and their rich contribution to society. And as you'll see, the role of Indigenous scientists and science is part of the programme that you will have here at UNSW Canberra. What I'm going to do is, in three parts, is talk about UNSW Canberra in section 1, in particular about the unique faculty that UNSW Canberra is and its partnership with the ADF and ADFA. Then I'll move into talk about, in section 2, deep diving into the School of Science itself, a bit about the school, a bit about the way in which science is a pivotal 21st century topic, but clearly also it's entering into an interesting time, interdisciplinary, with different kind of ideas, developments. And we're actually quite a unique school in the sense that we have 4 or 5 different science disciplines in one school. And that creates really quite nice synergies that you don't get in other universities where each discipline has its distinct schools. In section 3, then I'll go over the offerings that we have here. Oh, you okay? Good. The majors, the courses that you can take, the combinations, where the electives come in, the choices that you can take throughout the 3 years, and just give you a general feel for the programme. And then section 4 will look at the entry requirements, and that kind of leads then into space for questions. So first off, UNSW Canberra. What's unique about UNSW Canberra? Obviously, we work in close relationship with the ADF and ADFA, and in that sense, we're at the intersection of a leading university and a military academy. There's very few of those in the world. The alumni that come through ADFA in its 50 years plus history is really quite impressive. I've come from the UK and I've taught in the States as well, and it reminds me a bit of Sciences Po in France, where some of those really key leaders for the nation are produced in spaces like this. What UNSW offers and has been offering to defence is top quality education, and we've been doing that, as I said, for over half a century. So we've learnt how to work with defence, to manage an experience for students that I feel is world leading. So graduates from UNSW Canberra at the University Defence Force Academy clearly, as I've indicated, shape Australia, the region and the international community. Yes, in leaders in defence, but more and more you see the alumni going on to positions in government and in industry, being CEOs of really pivotal companies in Australia and beyond. UNSW Canberra is the only national academic institution with this integrated defence force focus. UNSW Canberra graduates are almost twice as many postgraduates compared to undergraduate students, reflecting our growth and strength as an excellent full-service university campus. I think that aspect is important. We are UNSW, we offer a GO8 education, so that's the top 8 universities in rankings in Australia. You get a UNSW degree and you get first-hand experience with leading academics in their field. We work in collaboration with the other campuses up in Sydney quite a bit. So as a whole, UNSW has nearly 65,000 students, so it's pretty big, and over 320,000 UNSW alumni. As I say, there are 3 campuses, 2 in Sydney and 1 in Canberra. And as I say, we have been working with defence for 50 years. Importantly, UNSW over the last 5 years or so has been going up the world rankings, and it places us very well on the global stage. I mean, on that, what's important is, and also collaborating with defence, whether it be with Quad or Plus Alliance, which is 2 universities in the States and the UK that work very closely with the military in their countries. We are on the cutting edge of some of the developments, and we feed that through as appropriate to the students that take our courses here. So that relationship of UNSW and ADFA is a really strong and pivotal one. To go then into, we're one of the 4 or 5 schools at UNSW Canberra. It's the School of Science. To go into what we offer. Science, as I've indicated, and you'll all know, and some of you know better than I do, is at the foundation of most of human knowledge. It's certainly pivotal in a lot of the machinery and technologies in our society. Increasingly, we are working with and handing over almost volition and decision-making to machines in one form or another. Well, we're being tracked and traced, and have been for 2 decades or more now. With your iPhone and credit card, you can be located quite quickly. That's producing enormous amounts of data to manage and govern society. So we can see that, in science, the ability to analyze, be numerate as well as literate is pivotal. And so from not just chemistry and biomedicine, but the mathematics in society and the management of societies and decisions through big data analysis is key. Clearly, too, in relationship to current trends in climate change. As someone from the UK, I'm a little bit disappointed that we're going into the 3rd La Niña. I just thought I'd escape the bad weather. But extreme climate is here, it's here to stay, and it's confronting in what it's doing to society. And incidentally, there's nowhere more that these guys who are trained here have had to go out and do a lot of humanitarian work in response to floods, bushfires, and so on. So we can see that this is, again, something where science and its unique interface here with mix of disciplines really places your futures, if you come here, in a good spot to be able to analyse and bring together those different knowledge bases. We do, too, have very strong astrophysics, a part of the school, and of course that's developing more and more. And therefore, across this, defence is going to be needing to have those skills and practical knowledges, because it is fundamental in all sorts of technology creation, computers, aircraft, ships, weapons and explosives, code making and code breaking. So science really is almost the bedrock of what a defence student needs. Indeed, every student that comes through ADFA will be in the School of Science for a part, because we teach you maths and aspects of computer science. One of the things about the degree you get from UNSW Canberra is that it is, as I say, it's part of the GO8, it's a degree from UNSW. It offers you a diverse understanding of the physical universe, from chemistry to subatomic particles, to the large-scale behaviours of oceans and planets, from computational techniques and data analysis, and right down to new understandings of human behaviour in our social technical age. I mean, one of the main areas of politics is around the kind of nudge of behaviour, whether that be from considering human factors in aviation, where those errors are, right down to those decisions that you make in the next second because you're flicking something on your phone and that's being recorded. We're slowly having to mine those micro, infinitesimal decisions and control that space more than ever before. In that sense, then, the school operates in kind of 3 pillars of a school vision. And it's important to kind of summarise the points I've made so far, in the sense that we aim to be recognised internationally. Yes, we're in Canberra, but we have activities going across the whole world in our research. And in that sense, we aim to be cutting-edge research science school. and actually really making use of the uniqueness of our space, which is the fact that we are small scale and we have 4 or 5 disciplines in one school. And we're able then to have really interesting synergies because of that close collaboration. In that sense, I think more and more for the 21st century challenges, we are seeing the need to have more interdisciplinary solutions. In that sense, we're well placed. And we do this, as I say, both nationally and to globally connected 21st century problems. In particular, the School of Science works very strongly in the bushfire space, in modelling it and leading that debate, not only in Australia, but also around the world. Obviously, we've had big fires in California recently and at the moment in Spain and Portugal. Likewise, we aim to deliver that knowledge to you if you come here. And this is key to me, is that we deliver research-led teaching. We give you the foundations. We offer a lot of support, especially in maths and physics. I can come on to that in the questions. But equally, we want to take you to the cutting-edge debates by the time you leave here, tailored and applied to your careers. Obviously, first off in relationship to defence, but then further on when you go beyond that, if that so happens. In that sense, we do look at those practical transferable skills, and we are very keen to translate and work with industry here in Canberra and Australia and provide innovations in that space. And again, quite a lot of the project work that students might do in certain parts of their degree will lead into and kind of gain some of the resonance from those activities that we do in that innovation space. Finally, the school strives to be a global leader in science for equity, diversity and inclusion, fostering science skills for all. If we don't do that, we're losing so much knowledge that's then untapped, and we're closing down so many opportunities. So as I've alluded to, Indigenous scientists and Indigenous science is really important in the school. Likewise, seeing more women come into school and across the whole equity and diversity program to get those that level of community engagement across all groups up, so that we're not wasting knowledge, we're not wasting opportunities. So let me go then into our offerings and talk through the possible majors, the courses, the likely courses that you'll do, and some of the electives and how it all fits into the program. First off, we offer aviation. I think we have 2 aviators here in aviation and other disciplines. So I'll pull them in later to answer any questions. And topics here include aviation technology, fundamentals of flight, aircraft systems, aviation safety, and so on. You can read the list. Interesting, on a master's level, we've recently done human factors in the sort of human technology interface. And in the first run of that, we had the chief 787 Qantas pilot trainer do that course. So it's quite interesting to see how these things move from straight aviation in the degree through to some of the other synergies we can do beyond, precisely because, as I said, we're very interdisciplinary as a school. Next up, chemistry. Here we do work across all the main aspects of chemistry: organic, inorganic, biological, supramolecular chemistry. Indeed, we also have theoretical computational chemists that teach some courses both in maths and chemistry. So again, while we might be small, we do have all areas of expertise covered off so that we can deliver across this area. And we're developing further work in the area of explosives. I will pause on that just quickly to say that we're currently at the space where we're about to open up to new chemistry labs. We have 6 new chemistry labs, so if you do come here next year, you'll be able to enjoy those spanking new state-of-the-art labs going forwards. Computational science, here again, topics like computational problem solving, programming, introduction to computer technology, data structure and representation, and languages and algorithms. Of course, again, you could see that as another example of how do we work with decision-making when it's algorithms that are doing those decision-making for us. So again, having that interdisciplinary space through these different programs is what I want you to keep in mind as we go forwards. Geography, we do both human and physical. Geography is a very Catholic discipline. It's my discipline. So on the one hand, you have the physical science, who have maths and physics in looking at coastal geography. On the other, you have my discipline, cultural geography, that draws on philosophy and sociology. We do biogeography, social geography, environmental hazards, that's something that's looking at extreme climates in particular, and geographical research methods. One of the things I'll draw out here at this point, both with chemistry and our geography, these disciplines are very practical, and we do a lot of hands-on work with you. In geography, we offer field work in every year, but in particular in the third year, we do an overseas field trip. It used to be to Samoa. Now that we're able to do it in about 10 days' time, we're going to Singapore. Mathematics, again, a lot of students, and whatever major you do, come and do mathematics in the School of Science, obviously to different levels, but you will obviously get courses in algebra, calculus, data analysis, discrete mathematics, differential equations, mathematical modelling, and waves and fluids. So again, you can see at the end there that mixing with physics with maths, again, that useful place that we are in UNSW Canberra in science, because we mix these disciplines in useful and applied ways. Likewise, the mathematical modelling, the work that we do in bushfires and extreme climate is all about applying those models, translating them to the public, and seeing then the human impacts and also then the management of those issues from climate to bushfires. Oceanography, we offer courses in ocean waves and modelling, but obviously also particularly giving you a kind of almost geography of the Australian waters and the particular unique dynamics that those waters present, and obviously looking at ocean circulation and mixing, which is behind the La Nina for the third year at the moment. These courses only run in years 2 and 3, and also have project and fieldwork associated. Physics, atomic and nuclear physics, meteorology, waves and electronic materials, astrophysics, electromagnetism, and quantum physics. I think that list shows that even though we're small, we cover the whole gamut of topics within the physics discipline. And again, you can get very different degree programs in physics in other universities. Some won't have all of these. Some will specialize much more in one at the expense of others. Here we cover the whole range, and in particular because we want to be able to apply it to the different areas for the ADF. So then, in terms of those are the courses that you can do, the majors, and I'll talk about how that plans out in a particular year, but let's just do a scopic overview. So this is then what it looks like for the 3 years as a degree program. It is 3 years. You have to complete 144 units of credit per degree, and you study 24 units of credit per semester, so 48 per year. Basically, 1 unit of credit, UNSW sees as 25 hours of work for the student. That's attending lectures, working on reading, keeping up to date with assessments, revising for exams, etc. We then have, obviously, a double major degree, which I'll translate and show how that works in a moment, where students undertake 48 units of credit for each major. Level 2 and 3 courses, that's in the first year. The level 2 and 3 courses, you have 36 units of credit for each major in those, because you have a seat of electives, which I'll come on to. And also then in level 3 courses, we have a minimum of 18 units of credit for each major, so usually three courses each. The electives, all students also take 2 general education courses as well as prescribed electives, so in a sense they're not quite free choice. Those prescribed electives are usually in the 2nd and 3rd year. Some of those electives are things like Introduction to Strategic Studies, Strategy Management and Leadership, or Law, Force and Legitimacy, or Introduction to Military Ethics. You are required to do Introduction to Cybersecurity, Policy and Operations, so all students do that. So how does that translate over the years? So this will be your typical first year. So these are the sort of suggested study loads and options for first year students, for Bachelor of Science students. 4 courses or 24 units of credit in study load. You do 3 to 4 science courses per semester, plus then 1 or 2 electives, whether that be in business, English, history, Indonesian studies, or politics. So how does that translate in terms of going through in the second year? Again, 4 courses or 24 units of credit per semester of your majors. So in one major, you'll be doing 3 courses, 18 units of credit across the year. The second major, you'll be doing 3 courses, 18 units of credit across the year. Then you have 1 elective and then 1 free elective, 1 general elective and 1 free elective. So that adds up to the 8 courses for that year's load. So although 4 courses per semester and they get split so differentially, so maybe one semester you might be doing 1 course in geography and 2 in maths, and then the next semester you'll be doing 2 in geography and 1 in maths. It all depends on the timetabling. Third year, pretty similar, 4 courses, 24 units of credit, total 48 units of credit per semester. And again, the same kind of pattern with the 3 courses per each major across the year, with then the 1 course general elective and the 1 course prescribed. So to kind of capture that again, if you were doing a physics maths double major, this is really the slide to get your head around and hopefully be able to diagram what it might look like. First year, you're doing 2 courses in physics, 2 courses in mathematics, and then 2 courses in the 3 electives. 48 in total. Second year, 18 units of credit, so 3 courses in physics, 18 units of credit in maths, so 3 courses, and then 1 each in those 3 electives. So much more choice in the first year to build up your full 48 for that year. It goes then through, and then the prescribed elective in the final year on cyber. So there you have your full load across the 3 years to total the 144 to get your degree. So again, there's a reasonable amount of choice, and also I think because we have that unique double major, plus the fact that we do have quite a scope of topics, you have quite an interesting dynamic degree. And so you'll be able to specialise in areas that you want, especially we do quite a lot of coursework and reporting work in the third year. A lot of the field work is designed in those disciplines, oceanography, geography, that does that, to enable students to choose their own topics. So there's choice within courses. But the whole, if you like, program is giving you quite a nice range and quite a good mix. Again, something we can answer in questions. So each major must contain those 48 units of credit, and then those 2 sets of 36 in the upper level. Another slide to think about then is, what can you do here? What majors can you combine? And again, I think this is where we're quite unique. So all double major combinations in the BSc program at UNSW include the Mathematics 1A and Mathematics 1B. Indeed, a lot of engineers will have to undertake those courses too. There is an assumed knowledge of mathematics, and I can talk about that in questions, in particular in relationship to the different maths that is taught in years 11 and 12, depending on which state you're coming from. The issue here is there's not prerequisites as such, so they're not absolute gatekeepers. If you don't have it, you can't get in. But they are assumed knowledge. So there are things that we would recommend that you do if you're not achieving that level of assumed knowledge. Moving to the actual double majors here, you can see that you can combine quite a bit. I mean, there's very few places that I know of that will allow you to do aviation and chemistry or aviation and geography in Australia. Likewise, the ability to do a double major in chemistry and geography is pretty unique. Obviously, some others are more obvious, like computer science and maths. That's the only double major for computer science here. But obviously, maths, if you just did maths, you can combine it with quite a lot of topics. And you can, it makes sense in some ways to have maths and physics. But equally, I would point out that because the bedrock is foundational maths, if you're interested in, geography or chemistry, and you're wanting to do any of the kind of forces, you will get some guidance from defence recruitment. You do have that choice. You know, don't overthink that you have to really prescribe to physics and maths because you have that particular area of future career in mind. You have a bit more scope because you do get quite a lot in the programme, and you can also use some of your free electives to tailor your degree. So the final section then is on entry requirements. The basic entry requirements is an ATAR in science for 75, with an ATAR for 95 for the CDF programme, so the Chief Defence Force programme. On that, I just point out that those that come here in the first year, at the end of semester 1 and semester 2, we look at your weighted average marks, and if you're scoring, I think, over 80, you can be entered into the CDF programme in years 2 and 3. So I've gone through at quite quick pace. I've found that some of the questions that we might want in terms of double majors, it's better to actually give myself at least half an hour to have questions. Because we're online live at the same time, I will repeat any questions I get from the floor, and hopefully my hearing's good. So please, if you have any questions, ask them, and also you've got 3 of our TOs here, so they can help answer specific questions as well, especially that balance and the uniqueness of doing a degree alongside the ADF training. Any questions? Yep.
So what is CDF?
Sorry?
So what is CDF?
CDF. So the question is, what is CDF? CDF is a program, a Chief Defence Force program, for those that, if you like, it's kind of a high end of people that are achieving quite highly. So it's a kind of a more prestigious degree program that helps in terms of selections down the line. Any other questions? Yes?
Sorry, just to extend on the CDF, so do they come out with the same qualification, just it's like honours?
It's not quite, it's like honours, it's not honours. They get the main degree, absolutely, and it's in a sense just a higher qualification at the end added on. Does that answer the question? So that was a question of what does the CDF actually give you? A question at the back.
If you already have a degree, can you pull credit from your previous degree into your science degree?
Yes, you can. We do have students that enter later on in the programme. That's something, though, would be specific. It wouldn't be a general yes. It would be specific to your CV and what you're intending to do. And you'd need to speak to the student admin services about that after you've gone through the defence recruitment. But I've certainly seen quite a few students come in with credit from elsewhere to build up the credit to get their degree programme here. If you've already got a degree, you have to almost start again ab initio. You see what I mean? You can't slice a bit off and add it in. But if you've done 1 or 2 years, then yes, you can. A question at the back, yep.
Hi there. Could you tell me, do you have a limit on how many science students the university will take down here?
So the question is, do we have a limit on how many science students that we will take? The answer is yes, in terms of the capacity of recruitment into this campus. And so one of the main drivers on that at the moment is accommodation. That said, people do live off campus, but most in the first year is to do it. So there is a quota. And again, in terms of answering that level, that comes down to defence recruitment. I can say that although, one of the big things and what I'll talk about here in answer to that question is there's a very good staff-student ratio here. It's probably the best in Australia. So some of the large classes, which is pretty small related to other GO8, which is the top 8 universities in Australia, our large class is probably 270. And that's the largest in the first year, but most are around about 100, 150. When you go into the years 2 and 3, it drops down to around probably an average of 40. And I have classes, most are in chemistry and geography of between 30 and 20 and 30. So that's an amazing staff-student ratio for this level of education. We do provide quite a lot of tutorial support in addition for physics and maths in year one, where students can go to one-to-one. So there is a quota, but it is a big advantage to the students that get in. Does that answer the question? Another bit of information there on my recollection, I think last year we had about 60 to 70 science BSc graduates. It seems small, but again, we only have about 1,000. It's going up a little bit. It's around 1,000 students across all years here. Whereas some degree programs, certainly Kensington UNSW, I know in chemistry there, they have that in year one alone, in just one discipline. A question there, yep.
For the students, how helpful is that teacher-student ratio? Is it a lot more helpful? How do you guys find it?
Before you answer, can I ask whoever does answer to come here? And I'll just repeat the question for those on web live streaming. The question was, could one of you say something about how helpful the good staff-student ratio is?
I'll be honest, it's fantastic. So what is really good about it is that most of your lecturers know you by name and not just last name. They know you by first name. They know your strengths, they know your weaknesses, and they know where they can improve onto you. So in my astrophysics class, for example, I've got 9 people in my class, and it's a very good both class culture and that student to ratio helps. Also, when it comes to if you're falling behind or you're not quite getting it, the help classes as well are very good and very important. And I've once had classes where I've had 2 lecturers coming to help me, and we're all just bouncing ideas off each other. So it's probably one of the best things about A, doing science, and B, being a part of this university, is that you get all the help in the world to get through your degree. Yeah.
Thank you.
My question is more about the balance between the military and the academy, academic rather, and maybe one of the cadets could answer it. This is the science courses. Has that been debilitating or difficult to manage, given the intensity of the contact relevant to your military studies?
Yeah, so I'll go and hand over to one. And the question was about the balance between the military side of the program here alongside the UNSW degree program.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So one of the best things about this university is that UNSW and ADFA talk to each other. So they have a relationship, so they know when there are university assessments and military assessments and what we've got going on in our lives. So I don't know if anyone here has been to the other schools' presentations, such as business or arts. So I think where you're going has science with more contact hours and a more technically difficult, in some ways, degree. Be more debilitating? I'd say absolutely not. And it also goes back to what was said before about the support. If you feel like it is debilitating because you have that relationship with your lecturers, with your staff, the help's there. And the other thing I'd say is in first year there's support classes which you can self-enroll or you might get told go along to these. And I would challenge anyone here to find any other university providing free tutoring at your disposal. So no, the balance is absolutely fine and it works. It's been going on for quite a few years, so yeah, it definitely works.
Thank you. I think, I mean, on that, you know, absolutely we work very closely with ADFA and are able, because of our size and class sizes, actually to be adaptive in ways that you can't when you've got big classes. And we've had to do that obviously through the pandemic in being able to actually make sure that I know that the third year chemists, because they've had 2 years of interruptions, can get into the labs to do the practical skills before they graduate. And because of the size, we can do that. So I think there's a big advantage there. There's a lot of advantages. Also, I'd say, you know, from my experience of teaching in universities in the States and in the UK, is that the culture here is a very tight-knit group. And these guys all look out for each other. They have almost, in again, 2 layers of support. They have the support from the ADF, ADFA, and then they have the support from the UNSW. And to the point about the tutors in science, we do have 2 staff, academic staff, whose sole role throughout the year is to provide these tutoring classes to physics and maths. And the physics guy can also teach into the maths as well. There's less need for physics. So again, you know, we do as much as we can to get students and support students to get to the level for them in that first year. We also offer a summer school for those that still don't quite make it, to get up to speed as well. Question there, and then a question in front.
Why is the computer science major only able to be paired with mathematics?
That's a good question, and I'll be honest, I don't fully know the answer. You can perfect. Sorry, let me just answer the question. So the question is, why is the computer science major only paired up with maths?
So there's not that many people that choose to do maths and computer science like as a double major. So I'm in second year and I'm the only person in second year that does it. But computer science is not exactly run through the science department. It's also run through the information technology department. So all of my computer science classes will be run with the cyber students and some of the engineering students. And so if you want to do a more computer sciencey role that has cybersecurity involved, then you can go through cyber and cybersecurity. But I chose to pick computer science because I still wanted to do the maths. So you kind of split between science and another department at the same time. Yeah.
Thank you. My answer was going to be demand and timetabling, and that's kind of, I think, the answer he gave. Question here.
So with the full-time study, how much of your time is set towards the defence?
Yep. So the question, and maybe it would be good for you, and I can give my perspective too. The question is, in terms of full-time study, how much time is given to study as well as to the military? So kind of a rough idea of the timing.
So the basic breakdown of what we do is every morning from the hours of 8 to 10, except on a Wednesday where it's 8 to 9, that time is given, or the military has, to take us through our military academic course of military law, how we conduct operations, planning, things like that. So that's the breakdown of that time, and that's every day. And then the military assessments are, you'll have your fitness assessment and normally only 1 or 2 assessments on the military side. So the way ADFA's built is it's very focused towards the UNSW program, but the military side probably takes up about 10 hours of your week in actual scheduled program lectures, and then maybe an additional few hours here and there in very specific weeks when you have an assessment, i.e. a brief or an essay to do with a topic that the military have given you.
Thank you. A question at the back.
So just to follow that from the university's perspective, what are the contact hours per week? I know you talked about 25 per course, but what does that translate to contact hours per week and study expected levels?
Yeah. So the question is then for the university to answer about how many contact hours per week will that translate into. It really varies based on the year and then the discipline. So I can give examples of individual courses in first year. You generally get per course, so if you remember it's 3 and 3 courses per year per double major, so 6 in total. An individual course in physics or maths will generally have 4 hours of lectures per week, and usually two labs per week, which is 3 hours, so 9 in total there for that one course, plus the tutorial hour, probably another hour. So maximum 10 hours contact per one course. And the other end of the scale, as you go down the line, third year geography class that I teach is 2 hours of lectures and 1 hour of tutorial. It's a bit more like the arts topic. It's more of a reading class, so there's a lot of work in reading rather than the kind of hands-on lab work. However, of course, we do also have the field school attached to these courses, where we go away for 5 days, so that's quite intensive. So it's a very varied program. Does that help? It's a scale. I mean, again, these guys will be able to tell you their current week better than I can. So why don't you come up and give your different breakdowns of different double majors? That might be helpful.
So, I'm computer science and maths, but I'd say my total contact hours right now would be around like early 20s. And usually it's pretty much for the time I've had here around that. You would be reaching 30 is probably a max to what you'd be doing. Unless you're engineering, you probably wouldn't get above 30 hours.
So I'm aviation maths, and I'm in a bit of a unique scenario. So I think someone up the back asked about study at a previous university and how that'll translate. So I actually did that. I did a year of civilian university before I got here. So that means I'm only doing 3 courses this semester. So I've only got 10 contact hours. So I have a pretty good life, but then that translates into other ways of I have a role as a third year now, looking after one of the divisions and also very involved in the sports and VEX. So you can make up for that time in other ways and get other practical experiences. But yeah, I have 10 hours, but that is in no way an indication of what a full course load might look like.
Yeah, so I do math physics, and this semester is probably the most heaviest loaded, unfortunately. And I'm looking at about 27, 28 contact hours. But usually as it progresses, things can change very differently depending on your major. But one of the things that I did here was a worry about the military versus the academic education. I sort of see it, the military side and maybe even that little bit more contact hours as your part-time job. This is our job to get a university degree, to get trained. So when I've got mates back home, we've probably got a very similar free time, but instead of them just constantly doing study or military work, it's part-time jobs. So really it's about 6 of one, half a dozen of the other when it comes to balancing uni civilian versus uni military.
With the advantage that their employer works with us in an understanding way. Oh, sorry, thank you.
Do you know the difference between going through ADFA and going through like direct entry or something, like into the military?
You can answer that one, yeah. So the question is, do we know the difference between going through ADFA or going through direct entry to come here? Yeah.
So the best way I can answer that is, I suspect for most prospective students in the room right now, you're sort of probably between the ages of 15 and 18, maybe 19, maybe be a little plus or minus 1. And that is sort of the perfect age to come to ADFA. And the best thing about ADFA, and I guess what ADFA gives you, is that 3-year degree. The degree is important. It's a bit of life experience. And it also goes a lot to, as you progress in your degree, it becomes, and this is a long way down the line, but when you've sort of done 10 further years in your degree, if you're looking to rank up, not having a degree can hurt then. Whereas, so that's the drawback of then going direct entry and not doing that degree. But, you know, for me as an Air Force member, our service is driven by the fact that we have a job in the Air Force, and if you go direct entry, I guess you can get straight into that job. But, you know, I think when I was going through, I was told you can go direct entry or you can go to ADFA, and I was sort of pushed towards the ADFA stream. For context, I'm a pilot candidate, so if anyone else is sort of wanting to go down that path, you sort of know all you want to do is fly. But now as a third year standing here talking to you, I'm extremely grateful that I've been here and got that degree, because ADFA as well, pilot's course, and a lot of courses in the ADF are very demanding, and the requirements of UNSW teach you how to structure your routine, how to think, and also just how to study, and it'll set you up for success, whereas some people going direct entry can struggle with that coming out of high school and then going into what is an extremely adult environment. So this sort of brings everyone up to speed and on the same wavelength when you do get there.
If I might just add something, for the Navy candidates, you do go to a direct entry course. You do the NEOC course, and it's the course that every officer does that joins the Navy. You do the year before ADFA, and that has very good benefits as well. And you can almost try out what it's like to go DE versus ADFA. But as Max was saying, the best thing about ADFA is developing yourself and developing friends and even just understanding the other services. So I feel like we've got a much better understanding of Army and Air Force, and for Air Force, Army and Navy, and vice versa for Army, than our DE counterparts. So I've got friends that did go DE, some are older, some did go out of high school, and some are struggling, but some are succeeding. So it sort of depends on what you feel comfortable with. But definitely ADFA gives you that extra breathing space to become an adult and to become a man or woman, whoever it is, and to be able to get out there and in a very adult but also pressurised environment.
Great, thank you. And again, you're then an alumni of two big institutions. It's a lot of people that go on from here very proud and come back. I got a quick question then at the back. Yeah.
Because you're a pilot candidate, do you know how there's like different ways of like becoming a pilot? You go for like science or like engineering. Like, what would you like suggest in the application?
So the question is about if you're a pilot, which kind of double majors are you recommending to do?
Yeah, I thought this question might come up. Without a shadow of a doubt, if you're going into, it's by no means a requirement, I will stress that, but for me, going into an aircrew related role, the School of Science is hands down the best people to prepare you for that. One, aviation major, a lot of that stuff is extremely applicable to what we're doing, and then the other side for me, the maths major, while you won't be doing equations as such in the sky, it does teach you how to problem solve and how to work and how to think. And while all the other degrees, particularly business and arts, are very popular for aircrew, while they're good and they're important, the School of Science definitely prepares you for the workload and the structure, and particularly the way you're going to think once you get to that point where you are on pilot's course and you're working very long days and in a very high pressure environment. So without a shadow of a doubt, if I can say one thing for certain, if you want to be aircrew, I'd think very seriously about the School of Science, because I definitely feel prepared leaving now in 4 months to move on. School of Science.
Great, thank you. There's a question at the back. The question is, was psychology offered anywhere in the UNSW Canberra? It's not here, no. We don't do psychology. I mean, that said, we touch on it at the far reaches of the human geography degree, but we don't do psychology as such.
Obviously, you're all taking different pathways. I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for recruitment, but how do you, if you've decided you want to go down this pathway, obviously a double major is going to affect which pathway you go down. Did recruitment give you advice on that, or the university? Where do you go after this? What's the job after you've done that degree?
You mean within the ADF? Yeah. That is a question for defence recruitment, but I mean these guys might be able to give you some hint of what their experience was. So the question was, sorry, those online, was there any recommended pathways or double majors for particular pathways in the ADF career?
So for Army, it's you become general service. You choose your job after Duntroon. You have what's the word? You go into what you would like to do. However, it depends on how you do it. Duntroon after ADFA determines on what you will become. Engineering, if you want to become engineering specific, you do need an engineering role. However, when it comes to the Air Force and the Navy, you pick your job with Defence Force recruiting. And from there, there's a list of degrees that that match that job. So for myself, as a maritime warfare officer, arts, business, science, basically anything but engineering, you are welcome to do. So that's what's really good. But again, science for the future of the ADF with a heavily STEM focus focus is what you want, because it is when you're on the bridge of a warship, in the cockpit of an aircraft, or even as a logistician, you need those basic logical principles, and it's logic that saves lives, and that's what's really useful about science.
There's a question in the back and maybe one here.
For the maths and the computer science, what position are you going to be moving into?
So the question is, for doing maths and computer science, what position will they be moving into?
So my role is aircrew, but not pilot. And so that kind of relates back to earlier. You can pick kind of what science degree you want. My degree won't have a huge implication into what I do post-ADFA. So yeah, if you want to pick like a cyber-based role, you can be like a cyber warfare officer, and then you would do a cyber and cybersecurity-based degree. But yeah, my role won't have anything to do with my degree.
Question here.
For the courses that have maths as a stream knowledge, is that standard or advanced maths? From the high school?
Yeah, so it varies. I mean, yes, the assumed knowledge is generally mathematical methods. I've got a list here. So the assumed knowledge for the ACT, New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, Northern Territories and Tasmania. Actually, sorry, I've got it wrong. I'll start again, apologies. For Queensland, South Australia, Northern Territories, Tasmania, Victoria and Western Australia, it's mathematical methods is the assumed knowledge that we would ideally want you to have. For ACT New South Wales, it's mathematical methods as well. So ACT mathematical methods. So the one outlier is New South Wales, which is mathematics advanced. It's assumed, right? It's not a prerequisite, but it's very. If you're not doing that, you're just doing general maths. It's worth getting in contact with someone in science. If you go over to the Adams Auditorium to our stand, we have a QR code that you can scan and get the details. And indeed, there should be a mathematics member of staff on the stand anyway, but to answer those questions. We certainly do respond to those that have just done general maths. And as I say, we do offer quite a lot of support. But ideally, you do want to be doing those slightly higher level classes in Year 12. It's the same with physics. I didn't talk about that in the slide. For physics, the assumed knowledge for students majoring in physics, aviation or oceanography is Year 12 physics. Assumed knowledge, though, again, not required. Question at the back.
Are there any bridging courses for physics if you don't have to assume knowledge?
Not at the moment, no. We'd often advise in the past some online options, which we can, again, if you email or use the QR code and contact the School of Science, we can advise on what to do there. Yeah. The question there for those online was about, was there any sort of foundational preparatory physics classes that we offered, and the answer is no, not here, but we do suggest some certain online courses that you can use to get up to speed. Oh, yeah, and we'll come to you. Yep.
On the physics, there's plenty of people that do physics that didn't do physics in Year 12. And the physics that we start off in first year is the fundamentals of the science. So the basic equation of force equals mass times acceleration. And it's those simple ideas is what we start with. So it is great to have it. I did it and it made life easier, but it, again, is not a requirement.
I mean, on that, I can give a story about this last year that we had a relatively large class in physics. Physics, it was around about 200 students, and we saw that some students were struggling, probably for what's just been said. We can adapt here, and we split that class into two in Year 1. And so we actually mixed it slightly with depending on where they came from. So we have an engineering physics and a science physics. And that means that also the classes then have gone down to, I think, 100 and 120 from nearly 200. And again, that means that we can tailor, as these guys have been saying, and be much more attentive to those individual needs. It's quite, it's time consuming, but it is actually quite easy to help when you're able to have and give that scopic attention to individuals. And again, I point out that we do have that tutor in physics that's in the school permanently for that role. There was a question, yeah, question at the front.
How do you guys find your free time with studying physics you have?
So the question is, how do these guys find their free time studying physics at ADFA? I want to know this.
Time-wise, so your first year, it's only one physics subject semester, so it makes life a lot easier. I did 2 art subjects as an elective, and boy, wow, they don't do much. But it's all right. I think what's really cool about it is you can look at something or watch something, or even see the clouds and you understand it. But probably in terms of study hours, I wouldn't work past about 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon unless there was a pressing test or exam the next day. So, and in reality, like, you think about your school timetable, that's about the amount of time you would face on academics. I was quite surprised when I first saw my timetable from first year, like, hang on, it doesn't look like there's a lot of stuff there. So there is enough free time for you to enjoy life as a physics major.
Question here. Yep.
For geography, how much of it is like schoolwork based versus practical?
It moves into much more the practical side. I mean, so I'm a geographer, I'm on the human geography side, and we have human and physical geography, and so the physical is a bit more lab-based for sure, and practical in that sense. But likewise, we have a second-year methods course which is around the arts and science of doing geography, and on the arts side we do that. I mean, one of the things here which is really key that we do in geography is around how do we communicate science. And so some of that visualization, the aesthetics of that comes through in the practical side of that part. The other issue is we do a suite of field schools and field work. In year 1, we do a mixture of the physical and human geography around the ACT. So looking from some bushfire spaces through to ecology and the changing ecologies from those impacts. Alongside, with this last few years, we've been doing women in politics and female artists, working with the Parliament, National Parliament building, and also with the National Art Gallery. It's one of the advantages of being in Canberra, that it's not too big a city, and so you can get access to these amazing institutions to do tailored work like that. In year 2, we do a work generally it'll be in a post-industrial city in Australia, usually Newcastle or Wollongong. And we look at the kind of social impacts and where we're at economically. It's very pressing now with living costs, etc., going up. How do you do post-pandemics? How do you move away from steel industry? How do we move away from coal? At the same time, we do a course down the coast with coastal geography, a field school. So there's very much practical activities. And then in the 3rd year, we're going to Singapore. We're going to Singapore and give the details there because huge, amazing history, both culturally. The mix of religions is like I've never seen in a city. And the history of that planning is quite unique in that space too. They're quite ghettoised as cultures. There's a really interesting geopolitics around Singapore, both past and present. It's a really unique space right now. And also what's really amazing about Singapore is it's an exemplary city on the global for both science, nature, and also smart cities. It's got more smart city technology than other city in the world. And again, it's really important for ADFA and ADF, but also for people in general, I think, to know the different in all those field spaces, whether it be different class of communities you're going to have to go into in doing humanitarian aid. A lot of I've only been here 5 years, the alumni of students I've had have been doing COVID work or bushfire relief work or flooding work as part of the job after here for a period. And knowing local communities is vital. Likewise, as we branch out and go more global, those things plug in. So you do get a lot of practical work in the geography program. A question at the back.
When the holiday period is here at the university, how does your ADF component continue on? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So the question is about when we have the holiday periods at UNSW side, how does the ADF or ADFA continue? I'll hand over.
So when the holiday period kicks in, you're given back to your parent service, and then it really depends. It's a bit of a choose-your-own-adventure novel. It really depends on what you want to do. So for anyone wanting to go army in here, I have some really bad news for you. You're not going to get much leave. You're going to do some really cool stuff. You're going to get cold. You're going to get muddy. But but you're going to do some really cool things, and you will be a graduate of the Royal Military College, which is absolutely phenomenal, but you're not going to get much leave. Then on the flip side, for us as Air Force, because we're such a technically driven and skills-based force, in that holiday period, there's nothing. We have a few things we need to complete in that holiday period. So I think accumulatively over my 3 years here, I've lost C-17, Joint Air Force. Accumulatively, I've done about 6 to 7 weeks of that holiday period dedicated to Air Force stuff, but a lot of it has just been given back to us as free leave, go home, see your family. And then Navy's quite similar to us, but it is really up to your parent service and the requirements of the service. And then for me as a third year as well, there's been opportunities. You don't have to go home. You can take work experience and learn and sort of understand what your service is. So yeah, it's really up to you, but definitely Army will sort of mainly be doing something every block of holidays, whereas Air Force and Navy, you might only take one block of holidays a year to do stuff, and the rest of it is time as your own.
Great, thank you. We'll take one more question. I realise we've hit the hour, and we're certainly being upstaged by outside.
Are your weekends structured, or is it free?
So the question is, are the weekends structured, or is there free time?
So pretty much no. Like, you might have something on some weekends, like today. Nah, but genuinely, like, most of your weekends are yours. So yeah.
From my point of view, I know places I avoid at the weekend. On that note, you've been a fantastic audience, and those online, I hope you were able to hear and get information. Please do those online, contact the School of Science, and we can answer your questions. But enjoy the rest of the time today.
Does anyone have any other questions?